the Woodpreneur Podcast, where sawmill owners and lumber entrepreneurs grow their businesses. Every week, real stories from the timber industry, whether you're starting small or running a big operation. Subscribe for real stories and insights from the industry.
Hello, and welcome back to a new episode of the Woodpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Alger, and today we have with us Todd Walker from NWH, or Northwest Hardwoods. And Todd has been with this company for 38 years. So we are going to dive deep into what's the same, what's changed. He has seen pre-internet being available to the public, pre-social media. He's currently the director of marketing at NWH. And so we're going to get to learn what's changed, what stayed the same, and what will never change with marketing. So welcome, Todd. Thank you for coming on today. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started with NWH and kind of how you've seen things change over the years?
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I started straight out of college, and I have a kind of an odd background. I didn't get a wood education. I studied to be a minister. And a professor came in one day and said, guys, it's time to sign up for seminary or take a church. I was like, oh my. So I took a job then with the parent company. It was called Weyerhaeuser. And I took a job with them in the paneling business, but shortly moved over to the Northwest Hardwoods part and managed and worked at the choice wood division, more of a retail choice wood.
Oh, choice wood division. Okay.
Yeah. So we made retail boards for Lowe's and Home Depot. And of course, back when I started, there was 50 home centers.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of other choices like Grossman's and Sutherland's and Cimarron, and had a lot of other businesses in that when I started, but it's, it quickly changed and Home Depot and Lowe's kind of took over and Menards has kind of picked up. But that's kind of how I got into it. Knew a guy, interviewed, and then really lucked out in starting with the business, and have always worked with really great people. And that's always been really important to me, to like the people I work with. And then we have a great product, and I like being, selling something I can sleep good at night and have confidence in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So 38 years, the people must be good, or you were one miserable person.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize. So Weyerhaeuser is the parent company of NWH. Is that correct?
They were until a few years ago. When they became a REIT, they had to sell us off because they had to really kind of focus on the softwood business. But we were part of that for the first 25 years of my career.
Okay. Interesting. So tell me about, so Weyerhaeuser. Yeah, the Weyerhaeuser I know is out here is more softwood. They actually have some of our Wood-Mizer sawmills, but it's more for the really rough cut one-off types of things that they do. But what is NWH's primary product? Like how diversified are you? You mentioned plywood. Are you still in that, or is that something totally different now?
Yeah, it's something totally different. Northwest was really started in the Pacific Northwest, and we opened an Alder mill in Arlington, Washington, and then another one in Longview. And we were really the first company to commercialize alder. Prior to us, it was really used as a pulpwood. It was a weed tree. They wanted the Doug fir trees and they wanted to get rid of the alder. So Arnold Curtis, who started the company back in probably 65, he started commercializing it. And that's when, we started developing the species and the grades. And, we worked with architects and designers to get it started. And then as it evolved, we started buying mills in the east and in what we call the glacial region or the northern region. So we had mills in Wisconsin and then Pennsylvania. And then we've kind of expanded over time, but we're kind of our bread and butter and where we got started was with alder.
With Alder. Okay, I heard that story and I didn't realize that you were the connection because I was really looking into it because Alder, they were trying to eradicate it. And the same thing, I'm in California and down here, we're not an alder country, but they were trying to eradicate our oaks and all of our Western hardwoods, essentially here in California, doing the same thing to make room for the very profitable conifers that we have in our area. Actually heard that story. I just didn't realize that you were with the company that that did that. And if I understand right, you created, because Alder didn't fit the rest of like the East Coast hardwood grading rules, you had to create separate grading rules to match the natural resource that you had. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay.
The size of the tree or the log was not near as big, so we had to cut it back. It was there are lots of limbs and stuff on it, so it was heavily knotted.
Right.
So we leaned into that, and you know, knotty alder was huge, and it was really a fashion trend for many, many years, and we're hoping it becomes another one soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to.
On that, so they'll flip it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It'll swing back that way. But yeah, so we came up with grades for a smaller log. We really go up to 10 foot. We don't do anything longer where, a lot of places go up to 16 foot. The trees just weren't that big. And, normally it's grown side by side with Doug fir trees. It's the benefit that it brings nitrogen back into the soil. It really helps in low areas where there's moisture. It really helps the soil and the structure to keep the trees in place. So they wanted to eradicate it, but they found out that maybe we shouldn't do that because the Doug firs by themselves wouldn't be that great.
God knew what he was doing by putting them there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. How funny. Interesting. Small world. Now, I've been working with, my mind just went blank, the NHS.
Mhm.
I've been working with them. I work with Urban Wood a lot. I think I told you that before we got started. And I've been working with them and with Dallin, trying to get separate Urban Wood grades in their standard. And one thing I'd never, until you just mentioned it, I'd never occurred to me to look up the Alder grades very specifically. Did you get those included in their
directory?
Yes.
Yeah, or their grade books. Yeah, there are several of them in there, not all of them. We're really sensitive to customers' needs by application or a customer segment. So we try to build grades that work well. It gives us a little bit more flexibility, but then the other side of it is you can kind of, well, this is so and so grade. And it's like, well, no, that's not really what it is. So we really pride ourselves in trying to be consistent with the qualities. And if something doesn't really meet up or match exactly what the customer needs, then okay, let's talk about a one-off that will really give them better yields so that they can get higher usage out of their purchases.
Right, right. And that's one of the things that we struggle with Urban Wood. You mentioned that you work a lot with 10 foot. Well, Urban Wood, sometimes you'll get you'll get a lot of 7 foot or 6 foot. Well, now you can't get in those selector,
Right.
get into some of those higher grades. And the problem is it's the same species as, it might be the same species as is traditionally grown. And that's where we're struggling to find, without that chain of custody and that sort, to know the sort of how to call it something great so people want to pay for it.
Right. No,
Without that, that degrade, the mental degrade, even though the wood isn't degraded, there's a psychological aspect that if it's not selecting better, it's not great and I shouldn't pay that. So
Right.
wait, that's our Urban Wood battle, but I digress. So you have had a lot of different positions with NWH over the years. Sales, running the retail, management, procurement. Now you're the director of marketing. So what have you seen, 38 years? So, the internet was not available to the public back then. Social media was not available. And I know every company has different ways that they would use social media anyways. But what do you see that has really, really changed over that 38 years?
Yeah, it's a really good question. When I started, we received 90% of our orders on a fax machine. We had a community computer in the office that we all kind of shared, but no email. And, if the fax machine went down, we're kind of like, well, we can't really work today. We might as well go home.
It's like
and
power going out.
Exactly. Yeah, we're done. See ya. Talk to you tomorrow. But I think what has really changed and what's really evolving is our customers are changing. And when I say customers, I'm talking about a procurement person at a cabinet shop or a procurement person at a furniture manufacturer. The problem is when I got into the business and when I was there most of my career, they looked like me. They were old guys that are balding, and we just kind of understood the wood business how we understood it. And we spent time in the mills, we spent time in the, watching the production run. And now we've got a new person that walks in that has a computer in their hand that can double check everything. And we have to now cater to that person and say, here's what wood will do. And so we have a marketing manager that works for us that's fabulous. She really is starting to understand our business, but really understands the social media side. And to me, it's a little foreign. One of her objectives and goals this year is to get me on more platforms of social media, but it's a tool. And to the consumer and to the new customer that we're having, we have to communicate to them that they want to learn, and we have to communicate the way they need to communicate. So it's really important to us to cater to that new customer. And I'll tell you, my son is 27. He's in a different industry. He's connected to us. He subscribes and follows us on several different things. And I love it when he goes, Dad, that was really cool. I didn't know this about wood. Lived in my house his whole life. Wood has paid for his tennis shoes since he was born, but he didn't know. So trying to cater to that new generation of workers that are coming in and really making wood cool again and making it significant, because it's not what it was 30 years ago. It's just not.
No, but I'm starting to see a trend, and I'm on social media all the time. And that's like my go-to marketing. But I'm starting to see a trend with people coming back to wood because I'm part of a couple different nonprofits and then work closely with a lot of different organizations to the wood is good, and bringing it back and really teaching the carbon sequestration benefits, because a lot of people got away from wood, and not because they didn't like it. They love it. It's warm. It's inviting. People are using it in biophilic design. They found it lowers your stress. It does all these amazing things. But one of the reasons that so many went away from it is they felt like a tree was having to die for them. Yet, so they, that 80s kids really learned to hate people who use wood, and that it was just so bad. And so now all these education campaigns, and I'm happy to get to be a part of those, are bringing people back and going, no, it's the most wonderful renewable resource you could possibly use. But anyways, yeah, I see wood coming back, and I hope I'm right. And I'm sure you hope I'm right.
Yeah.
But
And
I love
there
it.
is that is so spot on too. Just a brief story. I'll never forget the sales call I went in, and I was managing our retail business. Of course, we were making little boards selling at the Lowe's and Home Depot. Again, we didn't have grades for them because they were too small, so they didn't enough grades. And I walked into a customer, and this guy was ahead of his times. I just didn't know it. He said, "What's your story?" I went, "I got a mill full of wood. What do you want to buy? It's really good stuff, but you should buy it." And today we focus more on the story because we didn't tell it for the last 20 years. And it's such a great story. And my kids are the same way. Dad, are you cutting down trees? And I'm like, yeah. And it's so good for the environment because you cut one down, 2.3 come back. You cut one down, something else can grow in that space. You open up the canopy, more sunlight hits the smaller saplings, and shame on us. And I'll take the brunt of it. I wasn't in our marketing department then, but we missed the opportunity to tell that story when we should have, when it was right. And now we're trying to catch up and make mind.
We totally missed it, and we didn't see the connection. I grew up in a traditional forestry family, so I felt it all the time. Oh my gosh, your dad kills trees for a living. I'm like, well, so sorry. Then in the 90s, that's when I really started to study it, and I took over marketing for our family wood business, and that's when I really started to dive into, my gosh, we're not wood killers, we're wood saviors. Like this, we do the most amazing thing for the planet, for the environment, for the tree, for local economies. It's amazing. So we're in the best industry.
Well, and that was something I really got a good foundation at Weyerhaeuser. I worked 100 shows for Weyerhaeuser, and we would from time to time get people that would come in and be frustrated with what we do. And our easy answer then was, and this will make sense in a second, but the easy answer was, how many trees did you plant last year? And well, we didn't plant any, but we didn't cut any. Well, oh yeah, but a whole bunch of them died, fell over in the forest, and it burned, and there was lots of issues. So
Forest fire, fuel,
yeah,
all those things.
for sure.
What you think about it?
So that's when we came back and we started saying, hey guys, we have a way bigger vested interest in those trees doing well because we want to be in business in 20 years and we want to be in business in 40 years. So we want to renew the trees. And we have found that if we, and I don't know if farming them is the right term. I did grow up in Western Kansas on a farm, so it makes sense to me. But it's like you grow it, you harvest it, you grow more. And
It's a crop. It's a crop.
it is.
Takes a little longer to be ripe than corn does, but it's a crop.
That's exactly right. But we have the biggest vested interest in the success of that crop, far more than any of these different green groups. We're far more green than they are because we're trying to improve that.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I later learned is, wait, we're more environmentalists. We just understand the science.
Exactly.
We are taking care of the amazing planet that God has given us, and proud to do so. So
Yep.
happy to do so. Interesting. So what is that storytelling? That's huge. I could almost see, and maybe you've already done these. I'm going to go check it out, follow your social media here when I'm done. I could see telling those Alder stories because I remember the first time I read those Alder stories and in these old white papers from the U.S. Forest Service, first time I read them, I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. I feel like you talking on videos, especially if you were there, about what you did and the changes that were made. I feel like that would really resonate with people and help people really connect with the resource and feel good about buying Alder. We literally saved Alder because of this. You could tell that story.
That's an excellent point. We just got back from NeoCon in Chicago. It's the big designer show.
Yeah.
We're really promoting our new continuous ed unit, and yours truly going to do it. But it's really about sharing the story of hardwoods and why North American hardwoods should be specified into different things. And, a big part of it is the alder story and why and what those benefits are of having those trees grow next to the rest of them. They don't have to be 150 years old to provide good value. And of course, I know I can tell that you're an expert in the field as well, but after a tree's 80% grown, it kind of quits sequestering
It
much.
sure does. It sure does. And that's a piece that people don't understand.
Right. So 120 years, it's just not very efficient to do it that long. You'd be better off at 80, maybe even 60 years, depending on the species, but you're better off and it's better for the environment to do that. The other thing that I've found, Jennifer, that's kind of unique is I'll tell this story about biophilic design and sequestration. And people are like, well, that's cool. And I went, yeah, it's great. But if there's no demand for hardwoods, doesn't matter. Trust me, we love this, but if we can't get paid, we can't keep doing it. So we try to tell the story, and I spend time at some different universities, kind of sharing with their design groups. I have a little bit of a hidden agenda. It's like, hey, you guys are going to design, but you're also going to be consumers. Buy something that's going to last. Buy something that's going to take on and be here. I know this luxury vinyl tile, which I think luxury. I don't know how they got that name with it, but they got it. So
they were reaching. That was some good marketing right there.
That is a stretch. But I said, yeah, it's waterproof and yeah, it's cheap, but it's going to be in a landfill. They're estimating could be 200 to 500 years. So yeah, it's going to be nice in your house and your kids can run and play and your dog's not going to tear it up. And if you do, you replace it. It's not that expensive, but in the long run, it's going to sit in the landfill. If you put hardwoods in, get tired of this color. If you want to clean up the scratches, you sand it down and do it again.
Right.
So it's a little bit about the story.
Yeah. If the house is demolished, a reclaimer will come in and now you've got reclaimed, salvaged, deconstructed wood. So it just keeps going in, just keeps giving.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Wood is good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I always think it's interesting, all these substitutes that come out. The baseline is wood. It looks just like wood. It feels just like wood. Why don't you just get wood? We have plenty of it.
Yeah, it's like the vegans with the meat. I shouldn't go there, but I did. I'm like, but if it tastes just like chicken, why don't you just go have some chicken? Yes.
Exactly.
So sorry about that, vegans. We love you, but we love chicken too and beef. So, um, what issues in the industry do you feel really strongly about that are facing the industry?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is really substitute products. They're claimed to be extremely green. They really suggest that they're sustainable. They don't mention how much glue they use to hold them all together and,
I like
keep
I
the
like what
product.
you said. They suggest they're sustainable. They definitely do suggest it.
Yeah. And they suggest how green they are. The problem is, if everybody did it, would it work? Well, no, it can't. It's not sustainable that way. So I think, and we watch the hardwood market report. You can look at their chart by monthly volume production, and it's coming down fast. It makes me nervous. I'll be honest, it scares me.
Yeah.
And we've got to hit the bottom of that and start back up. Our industry, even yours, is really driven by new housing and people getting the new house and wanting to update it and make it their own.
Right.
That really drives it. But boy, I'll tell you, there's so many other options out there, and people just look at the dollar and say, I can do this in hardwoods for X number, or I can do it in something much cheaper and it's not my problem in 10 years for 80%. Well, come on, man. Spend the money and put something that's going to last. We don't hear much about heirlooms like we used to in the furniture. I can tell you, I got a basement full of it. My wife's an antiquer, but it lasts and it's going to stick around. And we've become that Bic lighter. I'll never forget when I was a kid, they said, yeah, but it's thing you just throw it in the trash. I'm like, what? You can't just throw it in the trash. You got to refill it or something. I'm like, nope, you just throw it in the trash. And our society's kind of become that where it's like, okay, I got my use out of it. Let's just throw it away. And it's like, whoa, 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 hold on.
Yeah, our society definitely has, and that's why we're so appreciative of companies like yours and like you specifically or individually is taking the time to educate the public because if enough of us are out there doing it, I mean, somehow we got where we are. And I think Americans are generally good. I think they are perhaps just not educated. And I think if we just keep driving those points home and educating the public, I do feel like we're going to see a shift. We can make it affordable. No, not as affordable as the laminate that's going to be gone in 5 years. But if we can get enough designers, architects, specifiers on board with really looking at the longevity of the product and changing people's hearts to look at that and say no to things that don't have that longevity and just mindset shift, I think we'll see a great future for our industry.
No, I think that's spot on. And we have to come together because we don't have the budgets to be on the TV every night or during the Olympics or during the Super Bowl.
Right.
I will tell you the one thing that's kind of slightly off from what you're saying or slightly different. That's another plus is the newer generations see value in quality.
They do. And we're seeing that back. And before it was just dispose. And I'm actually quite happy with the current, very young generation. I think they're getting it a little bit more. So
Yeah.
so yeah.
So I think we've got to communicate with them. I think we've got to educate them and share that story that cutting trees down is not bad as long as you're managed and as long as you take care of it.
Right. The pendulum can always swing. And I think in some places it has, and it's been quite ugly, but that's not the story that we have here by and large. And yeah, I think we can do better. Interesting. Marketing. We were talking about some marketing things that have changed and knowing your audience, yeah, they might change, but still knowing your audience is still one of those things that you have to do to be successful at marketing and knowing their needs versus their preferences and even suggesting what their next preference should be, would have value. What is in your whole business, or your whole career, your 38 career in WH, what is the accomplishment that you are most proud of in all of that?
I think developing young people that have become really good at their jobs and really, really grounded and understanding what's important. I wear my life on my collar, on my shirt sleeve. I always figured I was going to be at work as much while I was awake as I would be at home. So I'm going to make these people my friends or make them my work family. But I've had the privilege of hiring, multiple people over the years. And I'll be at a show and somebody will walk by. I'm like, no way. What are you doing? And they'll talk about their career, and they're all still in the business. They're all still doing hardwoods. But they've branched out and they're doing unique things. And to see them being successful and knowing that you just had a little part of getting them in the business, but also teaching them a little bit and bringing them along and nurturing them some, I think that's awesome. And I love that. That'd be number one. And then number two is seeing people be excited about wood and that it's working for them and it's beautiful and they love it. I get excited about that too. When we can teach and train and show the values and the benefits and they get it and they really get it. I don't need lip service. I'm too old for that. Show me you really do love it. If you do, if you don't, I get it. It's not for everybody.
Right.
But those are the things that excite me when it really works and it really fits and it's right. So
It sounds like you are either a natural leader, great leadership skills, or have been a student of leadership, great leadership, because developing people and watching them grow and finding great joy in that is definitely a sign of a great leader. So it must be a nice place to work. So, all right. Well, this is normally the part of the podcast where I reach out to you and I ask you, is there anything that I could offer you or anything you want to brainstorm about the wood business in general that I might be able to help you with? But as director of marketing, you could probably help me with a few things.
no, I would appreciate your points too on that new buyer and how do we educate? How do we teach them in a way that's accepting? I know, and kudos to you. I mean, come on, this business is kind of a good old boys business and has been for a long time. And there's not thousands of female workers in this business. But there's some that are phenomenal and very knowledgeable and really found a way to navigate through this system. And I think they bring expertise in communication that really helps. But how do you see the next generation and how do we communicate with them and educate them in kind of a broader stance? Like, what do we need to tell them to really communicate the story?
Yeah, I think from what I've seen, they're really wanting to connect to the story. And I was telling you before about the inventory system that we developed and how it's so different from what your industry could use, but it's very right for ours because we're telling that backstory on every single piece of wood. We get trees fall at the state capitol and they're coming down. We're telling that backstory. So our backstory is going to be a lot different from yours, but you have that great backstory too, and really educating them of the legacy that they're able to leave by making very small decisions, very small choices, such as, do I buy a wooden iPhone stand or do I buy a plastic one that's going to the landfill? It's $1 difference or $3 difference. And just really doing those short videos where they're connecting with people, not companies. They don't love companies. They don't love corporations. Corporations have been quite honestly ugly at the corporate level, at the boardroom level, but people aren't ugly. People they can connect with. And so I think just really leaning into those connecting moments and having the leadership, such as yourself, of an organization tell those meaningful connecting stories. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. At the end of the day, it's all about the people and it's working together and communicating and sharing that story. So
Yeah. And then organizations like ours really being a part of, and I know I think it's part of NHLA, the Real American Hardwoods, and them telling that story through that. Is your organization part of that?
absolutely.
And so just through that and we're working, we're sending the same message over and over and over collectively as an industry that wood is good. And I don't know. I think we're moving the needle. It's slow, but I think the needle is moving, and maybe I'm just an optimist. So,
Well, we need some of that too, though.
but also, you were talking about women in the industry, and I think it is important to get the female perspective because, like it, love it, hate it, who's the decision maker? Who's deciding what materials are going in that home? It is not the men. I'm sorry, but it is not.
That's right.
It's the women, and you have to connect with the women, and or you're not going to close as many deals. So.
Yep. And sadly, I think it's the guy going, "How much is that?" And that's like, no, 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 no.
And somewhere in the middle, they're compromising. But if you can get her to convince him, you won.
Yeah, for sure. As long as happy, everybody's happy. So yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. It's kind of fun right now. My wife and I, we've lived in our home and we're empty nesting it now, and both the boys are gainfully employed.
Yay!
And yeah, exactly. And so we're looking at right. So we're looking at houses and stuff, and I'll whip it open. I actually have an idea for realtors. It's like, can you just tell me what species the cabinets are made out of? And I don't want to hear MDF. I don't want to hear particle board. I want to hear what is it? And we'll whip it up. And it's, I can't tell from the photos, but we sell wood. We sell brown maple to be painted all the time. And I'm telling you, when you've got a brown maple door and it's been painted, and you open it, you're like, this feels different. It is. It's wood. It's solid. That's why it feels different. But I'll look in at these advertisements or look at these different flyers and go, no, my cabinets can't do it. Not going to do it. Especially the ones where you look and you go, those were oak and you painted them. What were you thinking?
Right.
That idea. You could have stained those a different color and been way happier with them. But
So many options. So many options.
exactly.
All right. Todd, how can people connect with NWH or with you? Website URL, what's your social media handles, and how can they go participate and listen to some of those amazing stories you're getting ready to tell about Alder?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. We're at nwh.com is our website. We want to be a resource. We have lots of information about wood, how it looks. We have a big gallery from all of our customers showing different applications for hardwoods. You can make it look like anything. One of our favorite samples is blue. And every time we go to a show, you can make wood look like this? Yes, you can. It'll work. But different LinkedIn and Instagram and rest of social media, it's either Northwest Hardwoods or it's Northwest Hardwoods, but we're on all of them. And my marketing manager is still trying to get me on a few more. So
You'll get
he
this.
says Instagram's my next one. I'm like, okay, sounds good. Let's figure it out.
Most of our business comes from Facebook or Instagram.
Okay.
Some of it comes from LinkedIn, but yeah, that most of our new business.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's a new day.
It's a new day.
Just more nice.
Thank you so much, Todd, for being on today. Great information. Loved getting to know a lot more about your history and your 38 years with NWH. And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Woodpreneur Podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe if you want to hear more. Thanks.
Thank you.